All right, it looks like everyone is here. So let's get this puppy started. Welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Community Resources Subcommittee. It is February 23rd, Monday. And Laura, if you would take roll call. Oh,
Councillor Perry,
here.
Councillor Nabad,
Here.
Councillor Davis,
Here.
and Councillor Loisel.
Here.
Yay, everyone's here. And for folks who are joining us, just to let you know, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be broadcasted and uploaded to the Northampton Government Video Archives on YouTube. With that being said, we now have public comment. And but actually, before we get into that, I do want to apologize for the fact that we're just virtual, even though I cannot control the weather. I hope that we could see each other in person, but all city municipal buildings were closed, and hence why we are remote. So, with that being said, I see no hands actually up for public comment.
Don't see anything.
All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, which are minutes. We have not gotten those those meeting minutes yet. And I look forward to getting them. I know that the organizational meeting was a little difficult, so yeah, we'll handle that when we have access to it. Next is updates and announcements. Does anyone have any updates or announcements? Lori.
Yeah, I don't really have an announcement. I just wanted to say that I'm very sorry about what happened last time, and I didn't really know how to respond with the Zoom bombing, and I wish that I would have taken some time to say this is not okay. And I also wanted to know, just going forward, are we all hosts, so that if that happens, any of us can, boot somebody out who's doing that?
We can make you all co-hosts. I think
Okay.
it will be best if we can all remain vigilant, because I think one of the things that was difficult was trying to play whack-a-mole between Laura. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That's a good reason for me to make you all hosts. I was thinking, since you guys are all able to unmute yourselves, that it wouldn't be necessary, but I'd sort of forgotten about it. Not forgotten, but wasn't thinking of the need to have additional people to remove people and mute people. So I'm making you all hosts right now.
Okay.
Perfect.
And there's 3 people in the waiting room now. Do you want help admitting them, or should we leave that?
That'd be great. Always, if during the meeting, if you can let people in, that's helpful.
Okay, I'm going to let them in. They all seem to be names that I recognize. So
What's going on?
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, somehow, you know what? I think I lost host privileges myself inadvertently. I think I gave them to Aileen when I meant to make her a co-host. So now I can't make anybody else. But I think let me see if I can take the privileges back. I can.
I was wondering, I always thought I don't know where I ever got this idea, but I think, are there a limit to the number of people that can be co-hosts or something?
Thankfully, no.
Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe that was what happened. Okay.
Yeah. No, when we had the joint meeting with school committee, the Smith Voc Board of Trustees and the City Council, there was a ton of hosts.
Okay.
For that.
I'm glad I'm wrong. Okay.
If anyone else doesn't have an announcement or updates, I have a couple. And the first is that myself and Gwen, Councilor Nabad, got together and started looking through suggestions that we generated from the last meeting. And thank you all for coming up with a bunch of great ideas. And we're going to look at those and previous topics and try and come up with an overarching calendar as soon as possible. So, but also feel free to send myself or Gwen or Laura any suggestions you have, and we'll keep working on that. And the second update is that I was hoping to have the chairs of the Reparations Study Committee come. Unfortunately, they're both unavailable for this meeting, so I'm going to set up a time to have them come in so they can kind of discuss the work we've been doing, the report that the committee submitted, as well as future plans, just to get folks up to speed, as well as to share with the public. Those are my updates and announcements. With that being said, the main attraction for today is um, a celebration of Black history and events that are happening in organizations that are pushing forward, educating our community. So we are lucky to have a representative from Historic Northampton here. Thank you, Elizabeth Sacker, for joining us. And Usman Power Green will be coming from the David Ruggles Center. He's just running a little bit late. And with that being said, I will turn it over to you, Elizabeth, uh, if that's okay.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank first Gwen for inviting me to come and speak with you guys today. She stopped by the exhibit last week or so, and we're really honored to be able to share some of the work that we've been doing with you all and with anyone who's joining us today. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Elizabeth Sachter. I'm the Museum Educator and Program Coordinator over at Historic Northampton. And we've just put up a new exhibit, Slavery and Freedom, 1654 to 1783, this past summer. It's going to be up until this upcoming December. So you have a little bit less than a year to see it if you haven't already. I also just want to say that we would really love to bring any city councilors by in person. I was going to extend this invitation to you guys in person, but obviously we're on Zoom today because of the snow. But we definitely love to have any of you visit the exhibit in person. I'd be happy to set up a time for us to do like a guided tour for you all. Because we really want to get this information out there, share it with as many people as possible, especially before the exhibit closes. So I just prepared a few slides just to sort of talk about this project that we've been working on, the ways that we've been engaging with the community in various different aspects. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Sure, let me make you a co-host right now.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There we go. Let me move the little thingy up here. Okay. Yeah, so over the past, I mean, since we've opened the exhibit, it's been almost 9 months. And in that time, I'm really proud to say that we've been engaging with the community in lots of really amazing ways. And so I wanted to sort of talk about the results of the project, the research, as well as the way that we've been getting that information out there. So first, I just want to start by talking about the way that this project started. So for us, that was with the Slavery Research Project, which was a research endeavor that began all the way back in 2019. So we've been doing this work for about 7 or so years now. I should say I've not been here for all of that time. I came on the team about a year and a half ago. So I've been on the sort of exhibit side of things and engaging with the public side of things. But I was not part of the original team that began the research. And that was really started out of like a community need. We were talking with people in the community about the history of slavery in Northampton and in the North as a whole. And we started to realize that this was a real lack, both on our knowledge and just sort of the knowledge of the scholarly world in general. I think a lot of our understandings around slavery are what I talk about in my gallery talks as like a Gone with the Wind style slavery, a kind of slavery that exists only in the South and only in the 19th century. And so when we're thinking about the way that slavery impacts our community today in Northampton, we have to totally reframe everything we know about the history of slavery to be thinking about what does that look like in the North and what does that look like in that earlier time period in the 18th century, back when we're still, technically a British colony. And when we do that is when we really start to unlock not only the ways that slavery functioned during that time period, but also the way that it continued to impact the lives of Black people in this community, in Northampton, in the Connecticut River Valley, leading all the way up to today. So once we realized that that was something that we didn't know enough about as an institution and that our community didn't know enough about, we established the Slavery Research Project. So that was led by Emma Winterzig, the person that currently held my position, as well as the research was actually done by students from all 5 colleges, as well as other scholars. And through that research, we were able to find over 50 individuals that we know to have been enslaved in Northampton. So if you come to our exhibit, we can talk more about the lives of those individuals specifically. And if you go to our website, historicnorthampton.org, we have a full page with full biographies of every single person we were able to find, every single piece of information we were able to find about them. And we partnered with various other organizations while doing this work, including the Documenting Black Lives Project, which I know Usman Power Green can definitely speak to when he's on later, because he's been a huge figurehead for that project too. But this was the sort of the core of it as it existed when I got to Historic Northampton. This sort of collection of research that had been done. It was on the website. This is sort of what it looked like. You can see on the right, where you can click on different tabs. And as much as this was really amazing research, and we were really glad to have completed it and to be continuing down these research rabbit holes, we found that it wasn't really connecting to the community in the ways that we wanted. We were still finding a lot of people that had no knowledge that the research was even there, available on the website. And so we knew we needed to do something else in order to get this research and this information into the community, which was when we decided to transform all of this sort of digital information that existed on our website in the research project format into an exhibit format. And so to do that, we assembled an exhibit committee. And as you can see, there might be some familiar names on this list. Obviously, we have all of our sort of standard Historic Northampton staff, which is including me and Lori Sanders and Betty Sharp, our co-directors, as well as Kelsey and Marie and Emma, various other people that sort of work at Historic Northampton, as well as people on our board, Shara Denson, Sarah Lennox, Gina Norton-Smith. But then we also thought it was really, really important when we were working on this exhibit to bring in other people from other backgrounds. So for example, we worked with multiple artists, including local printmaker, Marissa Skinner, Nancy Haver, our illustrator for the exhibit, as well as working with people from the 5 colleges. Jennifer DeClue from Smith was really, really helpful. She was also a fellow at the time from Slavery North over in Amherst. So we were doing our best to sort of work with other organizations in the area that are also doing this work. Of course, we also had Usman Power Green on our committee, who was really invaluable, as well as Dylan Gaffney, the town archivist over at Forbes, who provided some of the really, really key, like documenting, like sending us literal scans of new documents throughout the research process. Of new findings. There were points in the exhibit process where even though we thought we'd sort of found everyone, like a few weeks before we opened, we had Dylan send us another document saying, I've gone through the family papers of this new person and I found a totally new individual that we didn't even know about. And so we had to add them into the exhibit, as well as Emma Winterzag, the person that led the research committee. So the exhibit that we ultimately put together was formed around this idea of silhouettes. So one of the key priorities of the exhibit that we sort of established in one of our very first meetings when we had this idea of how do we translate this digital information that is really very text-based, very data-based, and not at all visual into an engaging visual museum going experience. And the main priority that we had in doing that was to humanize these people. These are people whose humanity was stripped from them in every possible way, legal, social, emotional, during their lives. And so we wanted to do everything that we could to personalize them, individualize them, and humanize them, and really get the visitor to experience and understand what it would be like to be in a room with all of these people. Which is how we came to this idea of representing them through silhouettes. So alongside our exhibit designer, Mike Henke, he created all of these silhouettes, around 37 silhouettes of individuals that we know to have been enslaved in Northampton, with their names and all the information that we know about them and their lives. And we presented them around the space so that visitors can come and engage with them on their own time, explore the space, get to know each one of these people in the way that we have been able to get to know them. And the hope there being that we can in some way offer up that humanity that was once taken from them. So I would really encourage everyone to come to the exhibit because I really think that is the best way to engage with this history. I'm not going to be able to talk a ton about the individual lives and stories that we were able to uncover just because I don't want to go on for too long. But if you would like to hear more about those individual lives and the experiences that we were able to represent in this exhibit, like I said, definitely reach out to me. I would love to invite you guys to the exhibit to have time to actually do that in person. But I did want to talk for a little bit just about the way that this research has sort of at least shaped my understanding of Northampton, and I think has started to reshape the understandings of a lot of the people that have come to the exhibit. So I've included one of the panels that I've noticed visitors spending the most time looking at, just because I think it visualizes the history of slavery in our community a lot more prominently than just hearing these stories. So you can see here, this is a map designed by our exhibit designer, Mike Hankey, who did the silhouettes. And this is Main Street right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Wait, let me go back. I don't know if there's a way that I can show you guys. Here we go. Okay, can you all see my cursor? Okay, great. So you can see this right here is Main Street. This is the same Main Street that we walk up and down today. Um, uh, First Churches is right here where the meeting house would have been. A little bit down the way is you have the courthouse, and you also have, City Hall where we would have been meeting today had the snow not been there. And you can also see the various enslaved people that would have lived and been enslaved on this very street that most of us spend most of our lives on here in Northampton. This orange circle over here, since this map is normally exhibited in Historic Northampton, is where Historic Northampton is over on Bridge Street. That land that Historic Northampton is on now is land that would have been once familiar to a man named Mingo, who was enslaved by the Parsons family, and at one point involved in a court case where he and a woman named Hannah were tried for fornication at the courthouse that still exists where our modern courthouse is today. It's obviously a different building, but it has not moved in terms of its positionality in our city. Hannah and Mingo would have been tried for fornication at that courthouse on Main Street and would have then been publicly whipped outside of that courthouse on the same Main Street that we walk up and down every day. You can also see the various other people that would have called Northampton home for at least some point in their lives. We tried to include a few sort of modern place markers just for people to be able to situate themselves as to how this map translates to our modern Northampton. So we have Smith College up here and Forbes Library. And I'll just say this myself as a former Smith student and Smith College graduate. I do think it's important to point out that Smith isn't just this one little gate here, it's this whole area around Main Street and Elm Street. And when we look at that area we can see is the land that a lot of enslaved people would have lived on and labored on, including a woman named Bathsheba Hull, who was actually goes on to be the first known Black landowner in Northampton. This is a story that we can obviously talk a lot more about in the exhibit, but the short version is she was enslaved by the Pomeroy family, was then freed, then attempted to purchase her own land and establish herself in the community. And the town council of selectmen within Northampton pushed her out of the community. They stripped her of her land by creating a sham legal case, and then warned her out of town, forcing her into homelessness and forcing her to have her children signed into contracts of service to the very families that once enslaved her. So she would have lived right down here If anyone knows that little stream underneath South Street, that at one point would have been a much bigger river, and there was a small island in that stream. That's where she would have lived. So I just wanted us to sort of take this time looking at this map that we've created, because I do think it really shifts our understanding of not only the geography of Northampton and the way that we move about it today, but thinking about the ways that people would have moved throughout this community over the past 300, 400 years. And for 129 of those years, that would have included people that were enslaved within this community. So again, like I said, I invite people to come spend more time with this map, looking at it in person. The other panel that I found to be the most impactful within the exhibit, especially with the community and the way that people are engaging with it, is the panel specifically devoted to the enslavers within the community. If you spend some time reading these names, a lot of these names might look familiar to you. Names that we've already talked about, like Pomeroy or Parsons, Stebbins, Stoddard, Strong, Allen. These are all names that are familiar to us because there are landmarks in Northampton, streets, neighborhoods, areas that are named after these families. And I want to make it clear that we at Historic Northampton, we can't say for sure whether or not these specific streets were named after these specific individuals from these families, but the family names are the same. The Pomeroy family was a very large family in the 18th century, very influential in town. Not all of them owned slaves, but some of them chose to. And so when we're thinking about this history of slavery, I do think it's important that we think about these as individual choices, but as emblematic of larger structures of power that were essential to the running of Northampton's economy and the development of the city that we know today. So going on from there, I just want to talk a little bit about the ways that we've been trying to share this information with the community. So we've been going about it in about 3 or so ways. So the first way is focusing directly with school groups. So that's something that honestly I really want us to do more of in the next year. We've done a fair amount. We've brought school groups into the museum, ranging from fourth graders all the way up to graduate level seminars. So we've been working with various different schools, public, private, charters, as well as some of the 5 colleges, to bring students in. And that has been a really fulfilling part of this exhibit, is getting young people engaged with this history so that this isn't forgotten and this isn't this sort of big shocker that they learn in their adulthood, as has been with a lot of our visitors. And we're hoping to develop a workshop at some point in the spring, specifically for educators who want to learn about how they can go on to teach this history, so that when this exhibit is no longer here, they'll have the resources to be able to continue teaching this history. We've just assembled a resource packet of some of the core historical documents that we've sourced from Forbes Library, as well as Hampshire County Probate Court, that delve into this history. And we prepared those documents in sort of like a teacher's packet alongside potential lesson plans, questions that teachers can work with students to analyze these documents for, transcriptions, that sort of thing. So we're trying to set up a workshop with educators so that we can practice using these resources. And we hope to partner with other organizations to do that. So in addition to school groups and specific field trips, we've also been working with various other fellow nonprofits to sort of have time in the exhibit, do sort of a gallery talk, but then also have a community conversation about what our roles as nonprofits in the community, as community leaders, are for reckoning with this historical harm. So some of the organizations that we've been doing that with include Grow Food, Kestrel Land Trust, the Hitchcock Center. I put Springfield Museums on here because we were supposed to have a program with them today, but unfortunately we snowed out. So we'll be meeting with them again, hopefully in the next few weeks, as well as North Star Teens. And so the big conversation that we've been having there is, obviously we can recognize that this is this huge historical wrong that our community has to face. But then the next step is obviously, what do we do now? How do we rectify that? And what are the roles that various nonprofits can play in engaging with that history, whether that is sharing the history. So for us at Historic Northampton, that's a big part of what we do. It's a lot about educating. It's a lot about doing the research so that we can say specific specifically what happened, and then getting that research out there so that the people know about it, which is what we're doing now with the exhibit and with a lot of these programs. But that's not all of it. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done, which is why we've been trying to partner with these various other nonprofits to figure out who can do what. Who can help share this information, who can begin to rectify this harm. Those sort of conversations are what we're trying to get started with these fellow nonprofit collaborations we've been doing. And then the last part of this has been work with the general public. So we've been doing bi-weekly free gallery talks. They started out bi-weekly in the sense of twice a week, and now they are bi-weekly in the sense of every other week, just because it's the wintertime, we have less visitation. But we just had one this past Sunday. The next one will be 2 Sundays from now. I recommend people head to our website if they would like to attend one of those public ones. But if you also have a group of people that you would like to attend with, you could reach out to me again on our website to schedule a specific one. And those have been really great ways just to engage with the general community about this history. I can't tell you the amount of people that have come into these gallery talks expecting that we're going to be talking specifically about the abolitionist history of Northampton that we know to be really impactful and really central to a lot of the community identity and pride that we have for living in Northampton today. And they come into these gallery talks and they realize that there's more to Northampton's history, that yes, this was a wonderful center for abolition and progressive political thought in the mid 19th century. But before that, it was actually a very conservative community, and very standard for the time was a community that was full of slavery. And so meeting people where they're at in that ideological shift has been a big part of what we've been doing in these public gallery talks. And then the other things that we've been doing include document study days. So we did one of these in the fall. We hope to do another one again in the spring. And these are days that are really, really special for me, just as someone who loves to work with archival documents and objects themselves, where in partnership with Forbes Library and Hampshire County Probate Court, we brought the actual physical documents out of the archive and into the hands of the public. As you can see, they're in these cases right here in our historic Shepherd Barn, and people could get up close and see them. We had provided transcriptions. And we sort of just talked through these documents. What is in this document? What does it mean? Who are the people that are being mentioned? Who are the enslaved people? Who are the free people? What are the legal transactions that are happening here? Because I think, at least for me and my experience doing this work, that was the time when it clicked the most for me. I think for a lot of what we're doing, we have to force ourselves into these abstract ideas of history where we're thinking about people who we don't have specific real visual depictions of from the time period, or any real objects that they would have owned or touched in their lives. But these documents are the closest thing that we have. And so having a physical material evidence of their existence, I think, is a really powerful way to engage with the history. And so that's been the final way that we've been doing public programming for this. And this has led to a lot of questions that the community has had for us. And these are questions coming from these fellow organizations, students, as well as the general public. And I wrote down all of them recently just to sort of go through. And these were the most common. These were the biggest questions that people had for us as an organization. And I think also reflective of questions they have for the larger community. And I think this is where sort of city council and these larger community conversations come in as to what our responsibility is. And these are the questions that people have had. So the first one being, why are there so many streets still named after enslavers' families? This is, I would say, the most common one that I get when I'm in the exhibit, especially when people are looking at that panel that has the list of enslavers and they see how many of these names they recognize. This has been the sort of the first impetus that people have of why is this still the way that things are? The second one being, where did enslaved families go when they were free? Are their descendants still here today? The answer to that is pretty complicated, mainly because of how much we don't know. A lot of these people are people who were deprived of last names in the archive. So instead of Dinah last name, we just know someone as Dinah, an enslaved woman here in Northampton. So it's very difficult to track people because of that lack of last names. We have been able to track a few people, however. So far, we have found no descendants in Northampton today. A lot of that seems to be from the fact that for the people that we do know, like Bathsheba Hall, who I mentioned previously, who were be able to achieve freedom and purchase land in the community, they were forcibly pushed out once they had achieved freedom. And so a lot of those descendants are in the general area of Western Massachusetts, but not in Northampton. So we know of a few descendants of that family that are in the Berkshires area, which seemed to have been a more hospitable place for free Black people in the late 18th and early 19th century. But that's a big question that a lot of people are having. And so it's something else that we're trying to do more research in now as our organization moves forward. The third question is, why is this history not more well known? People are always sort of upset that they haven't found out about this sooner. And so I think that's the other thing that we as larger organizations do have some power over in terms of shaping the future of the curriculums of Northampton students, as well as the way that we talk about our own history coming from these larger organizations, both governmental as well as private nonprofits. And then the last one is, how is Northampton participating in reparations today? This is a big question that we get. We're lucky enough to have people that were involved in the reparations committee on our team. So we did get to have some of those conversations, but I do think this is where most of our conversations should be headed in the future, is now that we're able to acknowledge this harm, and Historic Northampton will obviously continue to do more research, and we are continuing to research more of the legacy of the way that Northamptoners continue to participate in slave economies, even into the 19th century after slavery is abolished here. Some of that research specifically into the family of the Watsons, who are a very, very large family that moved to Northampton in 1858. They are plantation owners in Alabama, owning anywhere between 100 and over 1,000 individuals. The numbers are pretty shaky, but I actually did just get back from a research trip down to North Carolina, researching um, uh, their connection to Northampton and the way they invested their money in our city today. One of the sons of this family does grow up to be the mayor of Northampton in the early 20th century. And another son goes on to be the head of the board of trustees at Forbes for around 20 years. And that's research that we're continuing to look into today, but that's ongoing. But I think that when we're thinking about organizations' role in addressing this history, I think the reparations conversation is the sort of the number one hot button on a lot of people's lips, just in the conversations that I've engaged with as part of this exhibit. So that's the end of my slides, but I just want to thank Gwen again for having me, being willing to open up these conversations. And like I said before, I would really, really love to have the opportunity to invite you all and any other city councilors that you think might be interested to Historic Northampton, so that we can engage with this in the exhibit and engage with some of these individual stories. But that's all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any quick questions before we move on, but I know that we have other people on this on the docket, including the wonderful Usman, who was a wonderful contributor to this project.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for such an amazing presentation. And I would like to open it up to other counselors here, just so we can kind of process this before we move on. So, do any of the counselors have any questions, comments? Don't be shy.
I also totally understand if
Yeah.
not, it's people have different responses and we process
Word.
in different times.
I thought that was really amazing. And I wanted to ask if you are going to be working with the reparations commission.
I specifically have not worked with the Reparations Commission myself, but we have a few other sort of like Usman, for example, I know has worked with them and has been on our team. So those conversations have been in the room, but no official Historic Northampton employees have been on the Reparations Commission, to my knowledge. But it is something that I think we're all starting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like as that body is working to figure out, what will reparations look like,
For
your work
Northampton, yeah.
would help. Yeah, right, would help
Yeah, I know
to
we've
inform
offered a
that.
lot of sort of
Yeah.
like of some of the research content is drawing on the same sources and stuff, but um so far we have not crossed over that path yet.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Aileen.
Thank you. First, I wanted to say again, really thank you. That was excellent presentation, informative, and um, I really appreciate it. And I think you hit the nail on the head exactly with one statement of like you said something like the role of community leaders for reckoning with this history. And so just that phrase kind of hit the nail on the head of, okay, here we are. And on in this body in this meeting, like at least one of our directives for what we could do. And then I thought, well, there's a reparations subcommittee. Maybe that's being handled. But
Hmm.
do you know what I mean? That like,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's as tidy as that.
I agree.
But I think one of the things you said too about that's the abolitionist history and the Sojourner Truth and the Underground Railroad and all these things that are super also
Yeah, soup. I do not
important,
want to take away from the importance
but
of any of those.
that these things are all happening at the
Yeah, they're all happening at the same time. I think we exist in a very politically divided community today, and that has not changed.
and yeah,
We've
so
been politically divided for a very long time.
yeah, so it's really fascinating and how to grapple with the two things at one time was just helpful for me to put my mind around it. So I'll be thinking about where I fit in to
Yeah, I think
helping
it's
move
important.
the
Yeah,
information forward. Yeah, that's all.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing that I'll just say, because I do have to leave. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole meeting. But I do think that obviously we've done a lot of this research. We know a lot of this historical content. I do think the sort of the next step is the what do we do now question. Obviously, Historic Northampton will always continue to do this research to be uncovering more, and I think that's what our role is right now. Is we are continuing some of this research and sharing it with the community. But I think this is the point where we want to start bringing other people in from other backgrounds, whether that's Northampton City Council or fellow nonprofits, or as I said before, just sort of general community leaders into that conversation of, okay, well, here's all this information. Now this is public knowledge. Now the community knows about it. And like obviously this work is being done as part of the reparations community that already exists. But I think that this kind of knowledge and this kind of mindset should be included in the work that we all do, even if it's not specifically within the reparations committee. I think this knowledge and this understanding of where a community comes from is impactful to any kind of community resources work, whether that is on this committee or the education subcommittee or any of the work that's being done at local city politics.
When?
Yes, I
Yeah.
just want to thank you so much for coming and doing this amazing presentation. Um, I I wasn't aware of how closely you might be working with Grow Food Northampton, and I didn't know if you knew about the Living History Garden that is happening at Grow Food Northampton. And I wonder if, how that there's so many gardeners at Grow Food Northampton who care about this. And so I'm wondering what that could look like more, like, just what people can do or how they can. I think one thing is to get as many people to see the exhibit as possible.
Yeah, that's I
Um,
think what we're trying to do now.
okay. Yeah. So I was thinking like of a coordinating thing, like,
Yeah.
okay,
Well,
you were just here. Yeah.
yeah, well, if definitely if you all have any other ways that you think we can get more folks into the exhibit before it closes in December,
Uh-huh.
obviously, like I said, we'd love to bring all of you and any other city employees. But if you have any other ways, we will obviously be very open to having various conversations and brainstorms.
Great. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Okay, I have to head out. I can't stay for the full meeting, but
Right.
um
I
I
I I wanted to thank you personally as well for coming. I was, um, I really had Gwen reach out because I thought it's so important the work you've been doing. I was able to see the digital work a number of years ago. I think like
mhm.
2021. I think,
Yeah, that's around when we like put everything up on the website.
yeah, I think it was like at Tom Weiner's house, and this was when we were
hmm
first coming up with the legislation for uh, creating the select committee that eventually became the reparations committee. So I
Yeah.
love that we've translated it from the digital world to the physical world. So I just want to thank you
hmm
personally for this and for coming. And you don't have to answer this, but we've kind of been hinting around at this ways that city councilors and also the city can help. So feel free to reach out and do that. I have a couple projects that I am also working on as a member of the reparations committee and some outside work that I would love to collaborate with. So
Yeah, definitely.
forward to being in touch with you.
Yeah, yeah, I'll shoot you an email.
Okay.
We'll find a time to chat.
Thank
Okay,
you.
alrighty. Well, thank you so much. I unfortunately have to run, but I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your meeting and everyone stay warm.
Um, with that happening, I have to apologize for not recognizing Kevin McQuillan is here from the David Ruggles Center, in addition to Usman Power Green. Um, and I had reached out to Usman about being a part of this, and I would like to recognize Kevin as one of the leads there to maybe speak about the Ruggles Center, and you and Usman can go back and forth if you like. Oh, you have to give him host permission to unmute. I can do that. Oh, maybe I can't. Sorry about that. You should.
There we go. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Elizabeth, a tough act to follow there. Usman had reached out to me actually a very short notice, so we don't have any slides prepared. If we could join in tonight and talk a little bit about the Ruggles Center and what we do. And at the Ruggles Center, we're very much dovetailed with what the Historic Northampton does, because their project that Elizabeth just described to you really brings the history of slavery in Northampton up to the point where slavery was abolished in Massachusetts, which was in around 1790. So we kind of cover a period following that, basically from the 1830s up until the Civil War. And if you don't know the David Ruggles Center, we're located at 225 Nonotuck Street in Florence. And it's a small artisan's house that was built directly across the street from the factory building, which housed the utopian commune known as the Northampton Association for Education and Industry. Unfortunately, its unwieldy name has led to it not being as well known as some of the other more short-lived communities, utopian communities. But it was very important to the establishment of Florence. And it also attracted a lot of people who were abolitionists, very strong abolitionists, as well as believers in women's rights and being concerned about other aspects of society. And they set up a self-supporting community there, and it attracted, among others, Sojourner Truth and David Ruggles, after whom we have named our center. And if you don't know about David Ruggles, we would be happy to tell you. He's one of it's amazing story, David Ruggles, and how he ended up living here in Northampton as a member of that community. And he was a freeborn Black activist, very important in New York City in the 1830s in particular, fighting firsthand against the authorities there, who were all hand in glove with the cotton and slave industries down south. And his story is so inspiring, and in fact has become more and more relevant in recent years. When you see what he was doing in New York City in the 1830s and what is going on now around our country in terms of trying to prevent people being kidnapped literally off the streets and to be returned to slavery, whether they had been slaves themselves, whether they were born free. It was just incredible what was going on and how important he was as a figure to fight that. And he also helped so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people, escape slavery via the Underground Railroad. And among them was Frederick Douglass, who came to him in New York City. And he helped him and persuaded him to stay in the United States and go to Massachusetts instead of go to Canada. And Frederick Douglass was actually married in David Ruggles' apartment in New York City. Sometime later then, Ruggles, who suffered some health problems, came to Northampton to try and recover his health and lived here as a member of the community and continued the work that he did. He was not only a active warrior for liberty, he was a speaker, a printer, a publisher, a writer. He opened the first Black-owned bookstore in America. He started the first Black magazine in America. He opened a reading room in New York City so that the free Black population there could access abolitionist literature at that time. It was very important. So he was incredibly important. And then he came to Northampton. And so he's a person we celebrate, as well as Sojourner Truth, who is also a member of the community. And other people who came to Northampton because these people were here. And Northampton, of course, was a stop on the Underground Railroad, as many places were. But the village of Florence at that time, because of the existence of the utopian community, was not just a stop on the Underground Railroad. It was something of a terminus. It was a place where people felt comfortable to stay, and a community of formerly enslaved folks began to build up in Florence at that time. And that's the period that we cover. So we are a very small organization. We're entirely voluntary. We have no paid staff whatsoever. Our premises in Nonotuck Street includes a museum. We're only open Sundays from May through October, but we're available at any time to give host visits or give tours of all the abolitionist-related sites in Florence. We cater to colleges, schools, civic, historical, religious organizations, families, researchers, summer conferences that are set up in the area. We run symposia, we have book clubs, we've had all kinds of gatherings there. And we will, for anyone who's interested, we will schedule a visit or a tour. We just recently, we had some local charter schools through there. Elizabeth mentioned a partnership with Grow Food. We had a longstanding partnership with Grow Food, which unfortunately their grant program terminated, through which we would give tours every year to every fifth grade class in Northampton. So for years, we've had them through and visiting us and grow food. The living garden that was referred to earlier grew out of a garden that was there that was called the Lydia Mariah Child Garden, which included sugar beet, flax, broom corn, and other crops that were important to telling this story that we tell. And unfortunately, their grant program no longer allows that, but we would love to be able to do that again. In terms of what we are doing right now, with the help of an ARPA grant from the city, we were able to engage Michael Hankey, the same exhibits consultant who worked with Historic Northampton on their slavery project. And he has developed an interpretive plan for us to be able to upgrade all our exhibits and go forward. And that's our major effort at this time. Unfortunately, all the work that we put into that as it concluded coincided with the change of the federal administration and the dissipation of so much of the supports and grant income that had been available to us. So we're casting around right now to see what else we can do. We're starting a capital funding campaign to fund that upgrade of the exhibit. And we've applied for a Mass Cultural Council grant, which we're hopeful that we may get. And then in connection with that, we have to do matching grant fundraising. We're going to roll that into a larger capital grant program. In addition to being open and to doing all the tours and things that I mentioned, we also have certain events during the year. We're open Martin Luther King Day. We have events. Normally we have one at this time of the year called Basil Dorsey Day, which tells the story of one of the folks that David Ruggles helped escape, who ended up coming back here when he heard David Ruggles was living in Northampton and settled in the area and developed had a large family and became a very important citizen or a well-respected citizen in town. And we normally do that in February, but the weather has been against us so far, and we haven't been able to schedule it. But we also have a symposium coming up in April for what we call Founders Day, which is the anniversary of the founding of the community. And then we do programs for Juneteenth, and we also have tours of the Park Street Cemetery in the fall that highlight the local abolitionist community and everything that came on after them, because that utopian community only existed for about 4.5 years. But most of those people settled here in this area and contributed to Florence developing and flourishing, particularly Samuel Hill, who took on all the debts of the community when they eventually had to fold and paid them off and developed the village of Florence as we know it today, and sold the Sojourner Truth, her house, and provided her with a mortgage, constructed the home. She was able to pay that off within 5 years. He also sold land to Basil Dorsey, who built a house. Basil Dorsey did relatively well for himself. He was a teamster, had his own wagon and team of horses, and did quite well. And he built a house on one of those sites. And then a couple of years later, he bought a larger house and sold that house to Thomas Jones, who was another formerly enslaved person who also wrote a narrative, as Sojourner Truth did when she was here. So Florence, the story that we tell, is the nexus of all those things coming together in those years. And it's amazing how many people of importance in that movement came through here. Frederick Douglass came to visit David Ruggles when he heard he was here, and came back repeatedly. William Lloyd Garrison is the most famous white abolitionist in the country at that time. He was a brother-in-law of one of the founders of that community. He frequently came here. Wendell Phillips came here. Reverend J.C. Pennington came here. Lots and lots of people came here and spoke in Florence on the area where the Florence Congregational Church is now. and the pine grove that still exists at the back of that was the place where they used to gather and speak. It's a fascinating story. We love to tell it. We invite anybody who's interested. We will arrange anything. If we want members of this committee would like to come, we would love to host you. Or if anybody in their own individual capacity would like to bring any group or family members or anything to visit, we are more than happy to do that. And we extend an invitation to you and to anybody who may be watching to do that. All you have to do is contact davidrugglescenter.org, and we will get back to you and set that up. So I don't know what else to say at this point other than to say that we very much complement what the Historic Northampton is doing. We partner with them. We co-sponsor a lot of events. Elizabeth made reference to the Watson family as a project. I myself have been researching that for years. So there's a lot more that we can do and bring out and tell this story. And telling this story is so important because there's so much of it that's important that people don't know. And one of the most common responses we get is from people who grew up here in Northampton, particularly in Florence area, and say, I never heard any of this when I was growing up. I never heard it in schools. I didn't know. I passed this place all the time. I had no idea. And we love to get those people, and we love to tell them the story. And not just those people, but from anywhere around the country, around the world. And we have had visitors from around the world.
Well, thank you. Laura, could I have you give Usman Power Green co-hosting?
Sure.
I can't seem to do it myself, so.
There we go.
There you go, Usman. I think you should be.
Evening,
I know
everybody. I wanted to chime in first. Happy More Snow Day. Very excited to follow up. Thank you, Kevin, for jumping in and being able to share the great work we do at the Ruggles Center. And I think it is important for all you to realize that, in Northampton, the group of scholars and researchers at Forbes, Historic Northampton, also at the Ruggles Center work consistently collaboratively on all the what we do, right? So, we're constantly in direct conversation about all these initiatives. And so any support from the city or commissions to support the work really does work in collaboration. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to sort of build off of what Kevin had mentioned, and also the work at Historic Northampton, and talk a bit about the work that, I've been up to, as a sort of extension of both projects. And so I want to sort of share this with you all because this is sort of a lot of what the future is, and us at Northampton seeing beyond, how our local community fits with the state and the region. And I say that it's really important to realize that, right? Because while we draw the boundaries very neatly, Black Americans who lived here did not, right? They were constantly in flux and fluidity. They moved throughout the towns, oftentimes because of the different racial issues they faced. And so therefore, the effort to understand enslavement and freedom in Northampton is intricately connected to that story in Amherst and Pittsfield, West, East, and across the state, New Hampshire, all these places. This summer, I had an opportunity to work with a student to build on the work that I did with others, with the Reparations Commission, and the specific project we did for Historic Northampton. And so I want to share some of those results just to give you a sense of things, and I'll, obviously let y'all ask questions. And so what Jonathan Solomon, I sort of was able to hire a student to work with me this summer, and Jonathan and I collaborated to help do the thing that I think you all and everybody who wants to really understand, right? And that is the relationship between enslavement in Massachusetts, African Americans' experiences here in Northampton, and how it fits in the broader context of the state. And so Jonathan and I looked at and work with the content we gathered and understanding the experience of enslaved people in Northampton, and put that in conversation with this broader documenting the early history of Black Lives Project to begin in earnest in 2020. Had been going on before that, but in 2020, UMass and Mass Humanities got together and said we really need to do a larger initiative. And so these larger initiatives, local, Northampton, Florence, right? Regional, Pioneer Valley, et cetera, and then statewide, Western Mass, Berkshires. We sat down and began to bring things together. And so what Jonathan was able to do, and we're still working on this, we're going to try to have this finished by, maybe by the end of next summer, was to attempt to give you all a context for what exactly is happening across the state regarding grassroots history initiatives as well as reparations initiatives. And so we were able to begin, and again, I'm not going to go through all this because eventually it'll be live. I'll come back and share the whole thing with you. But what Jonathan was able to do with me, we sat down and sort of researched and looked up places in an attempt to help people. And it's to see. So if you click on it, it talks about organizations, right? They're throughout the state. They're doing the same work around local history and reparations, right? And he sort of identified the different types of organizations that are doing this work, with Northampton actually being a leader in this. And I'll more on that in a second. Okay, so this is just, sort of a sample of that bigger picture for, the type of work that we're doing, but how it broadens out. And this sort of gets at sort of some of the facilities he mapped out for us. Again, it just gives you a sense of the available information about who else is doing this type of work. So we were able to map that. Now, more specifically and relevant to you all, this documented Black Lives Project was regional, but one of the discoveries when we sat down and went through these thousands of records, and Jonathan has the ability to do this, he does stuff on IT and digital, was we were able to identify these 3,000 records, 1,450 individual records. And this is the part that I hope impresses you. When you look at the information that's documenting Black Lives Project, notice which town, which city stands high in information around documenting Black lives. Northampton, like Springfield, Amherst, stands up high for our efforts to gather data of the lives of Black people, right? So when I say that Northampton's a leader, historic Northampton specifically, Ruggles Center specifically, are leaders in this quest, right? We are a part of this broader group, but we have a lot of work to do, right? Because of, this data set, you can see there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to really get into these lives. What we did to help people understand how to begin to approach 559 people, it's just so many, was to isolate some surnames in that data set and then say, all right, so which ones are the ones that, as you look at these names, lived in Northampton, right? And so what we did was, I said, all right, let's pick a few. And so what Jonathan was able to do, right? So you see Bakeman right here, 334 times the name is recorded. He was able to go through and look at, well, that's the Jackson family as well. Let's go down to the Bateman family, right? Bateman or Bakeman, it's in the records twice. He was able to do this for us. When's the first time that name comes up in the data we have about people who lived in the Pioneer Valley more broadly? And then if we go over time, because people are moving, over time, the sort of records that show up with these names, they're in this huge, massive 3,000, document data set, right? So this begins to get us close. And then you look at where people, the distribution of the families and people with the name. And what you see, right, is my point, which is that Black people move throughout. It just makes it much harder to do research on people, families that don't stay in one place for, 5 generations, 3 generations, right? And so this is some of the sort of methodological challenge we face looking at some of these data sets. And so which again, for another time, but as you could see, part of what we're trying to do is you see this timeline down here, is to begin to help visualize, when you press play on this, starts the beginning, sort of the movement over time of the particular families. So we can see like where the names show up and map it for people. So we have a better sense of things. And this sort of just gives you a sense of just the general percentages in the valley. So this is, again, this is a start for us. This is the type of work that needs to be funded, right? I mean, I was able to get a grant to fund my student to do this work, paid him to do the labor, right? I got a stipend to sort of spend time mentoring and working with him on doing this. But historic Northampton, Ruggles Center, we need funds to be able to have researchers take the next step, right? It's great to, spend time and energy, but to take the next step, you need funding. You need people to sit down, go through records, build sites that citizens of Northampton can go to try to comprehend, understand better exactly the Black experience from slavery to freedom. And this is the beginning point of that effort. It's going to take more time, but it just gives you a sample of the possibilities, again, with support and funding. So I'll stop there. You all got a snapshot. Yeah, Garrick, you ain't even seen that, Garrick. You got a snapshot, y'all, of the possibilities, the excitement, right? And what exactly those of us who believe in reparations and, beyond commissions, I mean, this is life work, the type of work we actually are doing. Not just me, I'm a part of a community of people that are excited by looking at the local and state, region, and nation, and actually overseas too. So I'll stop there. And yeah, if people have questions, we could talk about it. But it's 6:36, so I don't know what time you'll get done.
Well, thank you both for that. First of all, Usman, I don't hang out with you for a few months, and you pop up with this. So,
I was saving it.
yeah. But like we did before, do counselors here have any questions? I'll move to you guys.
I'll take comments also.
And comments, yeah. Aileen.
Thank you. I don't know, what do I say, Kevin? Do I say Mr. McQuillan? Do I say Dr. Power Green? Thank you very, very much for all that information. Can you say again about the reasons people are moving around? You went
Yep.
I mean, I think I can make up why I think, but was it a variety of reasons, or was there one safety, purely land owning issue?
Yes, primarily employment and families, right? There's not many Black people, and the one of the things we notice in terms of family names is people go out to Western Mass, right? Further in the Berkshires, they meet people there in conversation. In terms of African Americans, they maybe partner up and then they move again. So I'd say sort of like relationships, family, and then employment opportunities. Right now we don't have a direct, I mean, I haven't at least seen direct correlation between like violence, for example, which is a primary way Black people came up, from the South, particularly after Civil War and before. So right now, those are the top two, I'd say. Good question.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much, Kevin and Usman. I recently was reading about, and this I've known since I was quite young, that there was well, hopefully this isn't wrong to talk about, but there were KKK movements in Worcester, Massachusetts in the 1920s, and also here in Western Massachusetts. And I think it's kind of along the lines of what Aileen was just asking, is like, was that like a motivating factor, or but I also want to say amazing research on getting these names and these numbers and just really digging deep. And I know it takes money and resources to do that, but I just didn't know um how much of an impact that's had on populations.
Well, I'll take this with Kevin because Kevin spends more of his time in the 19th century. I spent a little time in the 20th century writing about the Klan, actually. So one of the more prominent moments, you can see this in reparations report, is that even Smith College had like a women's auxiliary, the Ku Klux Klan. So the Klan was a very prominent organization in the 20s. And so it spanned, beyond what you had mentioned, the very prominent rally at Worcester, the sort of Klan's reach in the 20s, right? So the later version, really, sort of exploded in the Northeast. The relationship between sort of student experience, for example, for Black women students at Smith in the 20s, I'm not sure. Smith College, Black students in 2019, I want to say, maybe earlier, did a great research project on this.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of my work in the 20th century around here, it does not point directly to racist violence as being a motivator factor to populations leaving per se. 19th century Kevin, of course, sort of, enslavers coming north, and seeking enslaved people, and that reality of the ways in which racism functioned, is a sort of different than, say, organized racist activity, and was a motivator in the 1850s for people leaving after the fugitive slave law. So, racism sort of as expressed through violence, racist covenants, these sorts of things absolutely shaped and impacted the Black experience. Um, answering individual moments is easier in places where there's like greater documentation about that. But even a place like Tulsa, some of the survivors of the Tulsa, sort of, pogrom or attack, the massacre, didn't mention anything to their kids. And they were like in their 90s. The kids were like, oh, you know what I mean? So, it can be difficult to trace motivations for leaving and these things because,
Right,
sometimes families don't even talk about the real reasons they left.
right.
So again, we'll do a seminar on that, Gwen, and we'll sit
Thank
down and
you.
talk about the relationship between racist violence and migration patterns.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Lori.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you if you have any insight about, it sounds like, if I understood this right, Northampton, the efforts in Northampton are pretty good in terms of getting data about all this, enslaved people. Um, but we haven't gotten to the point of figuring out how to do some repair work specifically around that. And I'm wondering if in other communities, maybe that are elsewhere in the country, when it's discovered that, say, street names are named after people who were enslavers, what are the reparations? Do they change the name of the streets? What kind of things are done to, I don't know, make repair?
Yeah, well, I definitely, as a person that worked really hard on the reparations report, I hope all the city councilors read it because we have some excellent recommendations, Lori. So check
Oh,
out those first. The quick answer is yes, changing street names has been common. Worcester, for example, last year, there was I wasn't an enslaver. Actually, I can't remember. Maybe it was, but there was, yeah, that's, one very common effort, building changes, name changes. But, again, identifying to your one of your kind of sub points. I mean, the work that Historic Northampton, I mean, incredible group of people over there, have done has built on other researchers, right? It's built on that. There has been a commitment and the quantity of information that has been found partly is because of people like Dylan Gaffney over at Forbes, who has,
mhm,
made this, a major part of his role in the archive. So we benefit by having one of the top archives that has the evidence, and we
mhm,
benefit by having a leader in Dylan Gaffney who actually, is dedicated to doing this research, right? So we're not any better than the other town. We just have, an excellent, archive that people come from all over the world to use. We have a committed group of scholars and educators, Historic Northampton and the Ruggles Center. We throw in a couple academics, and that's more of what the reason is. And I'm partnering with Western Mass, Sheffield, that crew out there, because people see the stuff we're doing. They go to that exhibition, they say, we want to do the same thing. Right. And so,
mhm,
but again, when you don't have people come to the exhibition who are city councilors and employees, we don't have city members who care about issues of these things go to the exhibition, donate money. You can talk about how great it is to have it, but then, we want to be able to say, oh yeah, also every, school in Northampton went there. Every adult, who had like, we want to be able to brag about that stuff. Right? We want
mhm.
to brag about
Yeah.
Smith College faculty going through, right? But instead, it's like we got a crew over here dedicated. They do it. Then we got a crew over here, and then people say, "I never even heard about it." They say, "I don't even know where historic Northampton is." Right? So
Mhm,
again, there's a lot of work to be done. And as a person that's lived here since '96, I can say that I've seen different iterations of this, and it's great to see it there. It's going out in December. Everyone should make it their personal mission, right? Shout out to Gwen Green, my mom, right? Who physically brings people, citizens of Northampton, who actually bring. Hey, you're coming to town. You haven't been there. I'm gonna bring you over there. How about people when I just bring people there, right? So again, talk, talk, talk. Actions speak louder than words. dedication's rooted in actions, and I look forward to all of you and everyone who watches this to step up and at minimum go check it out, even if you're not going to donate or do anything to help.
Thank you.
Well, I know we've been talking for a bit, but I also want to personally thank you, Kevin, and Usman. Um, I will say that it's been wonderful working with not only Usman, who chaired, if people don't know, he was the chair of the Reparations Committee, who he stepped down. And as you can see, he has not stopped doing the work. Action speaks for itself. Um, and as well as Emma Khan, Sudan is currently serving. He's part of the Ruggles Center. But I did want to just let folks know who are watching this. This is sort of what for me, the vision of the community resources is educating, letting you know what resources that we have in our community. And also, I want to take a moment to let you know that Historic Northampton doesn't just study slavery. They research the culture of Northampton. I did want to bring them here because I felt like it's important to celebrate this on Black History Month. But also, people like Usman does not just do this sort of work. He also works with the Power of Truth Conference, which is happens in Bombyx right out in Florence as well. And I just want to, as my overview is really the things that we need are funding and to not only publicize this information, but get bodies there to spread the good word. And I will push back against Usman as we are kind of better than some folks because we got really motivated people out here. And we are leading the pack. I've learned in my work as a counselor that a lot of our departments, a lot of our nonprofits are kind of influencing the area around us. And so I'm very proud of that. And I will continue to showcase that. And I'm thankful that you guys were allowed to speak and do that. And I'll see you soon. With that being said, I think we can move on from that unless any of the other counselors have anything else to say about any of the discussions. All right. Perfect. Again, thank you guys for coming.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody. Thanks, Kevin, by the way.
Thank you. We have no items referred to this committee. Our next agenda item is new business. I do not have any. Does anyone have any new business? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, Laura, roll call.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
Councillor Nabad,
Yes.
Councillor Davis,
Yes.
and Councillor Loisel.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for participating in this discussion, everyone. And
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. That was
Thanks,
fabulous.
everybody.
I know,
Thanks.
Laura, before
Bye-bye.
you leave, I know that we stopped the meeting, but I wanted to mention there's other projects in the area that instead of naming streets, there's this Witness Stone project in Deerfield, which is really powerful, where they have stones placed with enslaved people, honoring them who live there throughout there. And again, when the reparations committee comes, we're going to talk about like a lot of this stuff is in this report. So there you go.
Yeah, I will. I did read the report and I often forget things, so I have to read it again.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Persevered and had the meeting, Garrick.
Thank you for helping me get this meeting going. I know we worked.
It was
Great. It was
Yeah, it
great.
was very great.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.